My name's Michael, and until a few months ago, I believed nightmares only happened when you were asleep. But I learned the truth in the worst way possible. Some nightmares sit awake and watch you sleep. It began on a cold night in October. I had just moved into a small apartment after my breakup. The place was old, but quiet. I liked that. I needed peace. At around 2:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. Not because of a sound, not because of a dream. Just a strange feeling that something was in the room with me. I opened my eyes slowly. At the end of my bed, sitting perfectly still, was a girl. She looked about 8 years old. Pale face, long black hair, white dress. Her head was tilted slightly to the side, as if she was studying me. I jolted awake and blinked hard. She disappeared. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, nothing more. That's what made sense. But the next night proved it wasn't. At exactly 2:30 a.m., I woke up again. My room was dark except for a faint streetlight glow coming through the curtains. The girl was there again. Same spot, same posture, same lifeless eyes staring at me. But this time, she was closer. Instead of sitting at the end of the bed, she was sitting on my legs. My body froze. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, like invisible hands were squeezing the room tighter and tighter. The girl leaned forward slowly. Her hair slid off her face. Her eyes, they weren't human. Completely black. No whites. Just endless darkness. She whispered something so faint I thought I imagined it. "Don't send me back downstairs." Downstairs? I lived on the 3rd floor. There was no basement. Before I could move, she flickered, literally flickered like a glitch in a video. Then she vanished. The next morning, the house smelt different. Damp. Old, like a place that hadn't been opened in years. When I checked the living room, I found something that made my blood run cold. A small, muddy footprint on the carpet, the footprint of a child. I don't have kids. I don't even have visitors. I cleaned it, told myself someone tracked mud inside. A normal explanation, a safe explanation. That night, I kept the lights on. At exactly 2:30 a.m., the lights went out. Every bulb, every lamp, total darkness. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. Everything was dead. Then I felt the bed sink, like the weight of a small body sitting on it. Cold air brushed across my legs. Something small moved toward my chest. I wanted to run, scream, anything. But my body wouldn't move. She climbed onto my stomach. I could feel her knees pressing through the blanket. Her hair brushed against my chin. Then she whispered in a trembling voice, "He sent me upstairs because he doesn't want me anymore." Who? Who doesn't want you? She lifted her head slowly. Her face was inches from mine. Her breath was cold as winter. The man in the basement. My heart stopped. My building didn't have a basement, just storage units on the ground floor. I forced myself up and hit the light switch. The lights flickered back on. The girl was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following day, I went downstairs to the storage area. There was a locked metal door I had never noticed before. A door labeled, "Lower Basement, Do Not Enter." Lower basement? I pressed my ear to the door. Silence at first. Then scratching. Slow, weak scratching. Like fingernails dragging across concrete. A man's voice whispered from the other side. "Don't let her back down here. Please." I stumbled backward. The voice sounded broken, terrified. Not a monster,
not a demon, just a man who knew something I didn't. That night, I packed my things and left the apartment forever. But the story doesn't end there. 2 days after I moved, I woke up in my new bedroom at, of course, 2:30 a.m. Sitting at the end of my bed was the girl. She tilted her head and smiled. "Thank you for taking me away from him. Now you're the one who has to keep me." I never asked for her. I never wanted her. But she sits at the end of my bed every night, waiting, watching, smiling. And sometimes when the lights go out, I hear a man far away screaming, "Send her back! Please, send her back!" But she never goes back. Not anymore.
I never believed a simple wooden door could ruin someone's life. It sounds ridiculous. A door? But once you hear what happened to me, you'll understand why I no longer sleep anywhere near one. It all started when I moved into a small house in the countryside. It was quiet, cheap, and perfect for writing my research paper. The house had only one strange thing about it: a door in the hallway. Heavy, dark brown, old, that the landlord told me never to open. "It's sealed for a reason," he said. "It opens by itself." I laughed. He didn't laugh back. I assumed he was just superstitious. The first 3 days were normal, peaceful, nothing strange. Then, on the 4th night, I woke up at exactly 3:18 a.m. to the sound of wood creaking. I got up and walked into the hallway. The forbidden door, the one the landlord warned me about, was slightly open. Not wide, just 1 inch, enough to let darkness spill into the hallway like ink. I froze. I remembered locking it myself the day I moved in. I pushed it shut and went back to bed, a little uneasy, but still trying to be rational. Maybe the lock was loose. Maybe the wood had warped. The next night, at 3:18 a.m., I heard it again. Creak. The door was open 2 inches now. A cold wave of air drifted out of the gap, air that smelled like wet soil and rusted metal. I closed it again, harder this time, and pushed a chair in front of it. But when I turned around, I heard a soft, slow knocking from the other side. Knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. Knock. I whispered, "Who's there?" The knocking stopped instantly. The next morning, I called the landlord. He said only one thing: "Don't speak to it." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway with a flashlight, watching the door carefully. At exactly 3:18 a.m., the chair slid across the floor all by itself. Just a soft scraping sound as the chair moved away from the door. Then, slowly, silently, the door began to open. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. My flashlight flickered. A shape stood in the gap between the door and the darkness behind it. Not a person, not a shadow, just a shape, a wrong shape, like something trying to copy the outline of a human, but failing. I slammed the door shut and ran to my room.
The door lock on my bedroom door began to turn, slowly, back and forth, like a child trying to figure out how locks work. I held the door with my full weight until the turning stopped. When the sun came up, I found muddy fingerprints, not handprints, fingerprints, on the hallway floor, as if something had crawled out halfway and then retreated. I decided to leave the house, but the house didn't want me to leave. When I packed my bags and stepped into the hallway, the forbidden door was wide open, revealing a staircase going down into pitch-black darkness. But that staircase didn't exist before. There was only empty wall behind the door. I stepped backward slowly. Every instinct screamed, "Run!" Then I heard breathing. Deep, slow breathing rising from the bottom of the stairs. Something climbing up. I slammed the door shut and held it with all my strength. Something on the other side pushed back, hard, harder. The wood cracked, splinters rained down around my feet. A voice, low, broken, like wind through a grave, whispered, "You opened it last night, Rachel. Now I can open yours." I ran out of the house, got in my car, and drove until the tank was empty. The landlord called me the next day. He only said, "You should have moved sooner." I never returned, but here's the part that keeps me awake even now. 2 days after I moved into my new apartment, at exactly 3:18 a.m., I heard a long, slow creaking sound. I looked toward my bedroom door. It was opening, all by itself. And when I shined my flashlight at the crack, I saw fingers, long, muddy fingers, curling around the edge of the door frame. The thing behind the forbidden door is not trapped in that house anymore. It followed me, and now, every night, it opens a little more.
My name is Adrian, and until this year, I never thought shadows could behave independently. They were harmless dark shapes created by light, nothing more. But that belief ended the night my shadow stopped matching my movements and started following me on its own. It began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I was walking home after work. The street lights were dim, flickering the way old bulbs do when they're close to dying. My shadow stretched far ahead of me on the pavement, tall and thin, perfectly normal. Until it wasn't. At the final corner before my apartment, I noticed something strange. My shadow kept walking forward even after I had stopped. I froze. The shadow froze too, 2 seconds later. A chill crept down my spine. I convinced myself I was imagining it. Maybe the flickering light made it look delayed. Maybe I was tired. But when I took 1 step forward, the shadow took 2. Not longer, not stretched. 2 full steps. I felt my stomach twist. I speed-walked the rest of the way home, refusing to look at the ground again. Inside my apartment, I turned on every light. For a few hours, everything felt normal. My shadow stayed where it should. It moved when I moved. It stopped when I stopped. I finally relaxed. At around 2 a.m., I turned off the lights and lay down to sleep. That was my mistake. With the room dark, the faint glow from the street outside cast a soft shadow of my body on the wall across from my bed. I rolled onto my side. The shadow didn't. It stayed lying on its back, perfectly still, still facing the ceiling. My breath caught in my throat. I sat up slowly. The shadow sat up too, but faster than me. I scrambled for the lamp and turned it on. The shadow snapped back into my exact shape, but only after a full second. That delay. That awful delay. Something wasn't right. The next night, I slept with the lights on. It didn't help. At exactly 1:43 a.m., all the lights in my apartment went out at once. No pop, no flicker, just instant darkness. My phone screen wouldn't turn on. My charger was dead. Everything electrical had shut off. The dim streetlight outside cast my shadow on the wall again. This time, it was already standing, even though I was still lying in bed. I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The shadow slowly raised its arm and pointed at me, its finger long and distorted. Then, it stepped toward the bed. The shadow detached from the surface of the wall, like liquid peeling away. It rose upright, no longer flat, no longer two-dimensional, but standing in the room with me, as tall and solid as a human made of darkness. I grabbed my phone and used the tiny bit of battery left to shine the flashlight. The shadow vanished, instantly, returning to the wall. But the moment the phone died, it stepped out again. This time, it stood at the foot of my bed. I whispered, trembling, "What do you want?" For the first time, it moved its head, slowly, side to side, like it was studying me. Then a low, deep voice, not from the shadow, but from the dark corners of the room, said, "You brought me home." My skin crawled. I choked out, "How?" The voice answered, "You noticed me." The shadow leaned over my bed. Its face, if it had one, hovered inches from mine. The darkness around its shape pulsed like it was breathing. I bolted from the bed and ran out the front door, without shoes, without my phone, without looking back. I didn't go home for 3 days. When I finally returned with friends, the apartment was silent, untouched. But something was different. On the wall above my bed, in huge black smudges, was the shape of a human silhouette, as if something had pressed its entire body against the wall, waiting. I moved out that day. But even now, no matter where I go, the shadow problem isn't gone. Sometimes when I walk down the street, I see 2 shadows behind me instead of one that matches my movement perfectly, and one that moves however it wants. Last night, as I passed a store window, I looked at the glass and saw my reflection clearly. But behind me, behind only me, a second shadow stood just out of the reach of the streetlight. It lifted its hand and pointed at me again, and the voice whispered, "You can't outrun something that doesn't need feet." I don't know what it wants. I don't know how it chooses people, but I do know this. Once a shadow notices you, it never stops following.